Right, hang on. Oh, we're live. Okay. I've
Hi.
I've got Stu in the bath who's tech support, so I'm hoping he's going to give me a thumbs up and tell me that it's working.
Oh, good.
Otherwise, we might just be talking to ourselves. Brilliant. So, hello to everybody who's joined us. If you're not watching us live, maybe they'll be watching us later.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining me, Caitie.
Yeah,
All,
no, thanks for having me.
all the way from Texas. Is that right? Yeah,
Yes,
you're in
yeah,
Texas. Cool.
we're in
Brilliant.
Texas.
Awesome. Right, I've got a thumbs up. Brilliant. We're broadcasting for the world. That's ace. So you're from Southwest Liberty Horse Club.
Yes.
And we've chatted a few times on Facebook, but we've never spoken actually in person like this. So it's very exciting, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
So just start off by telling us a bit about you and sort of how you got started and how you got involved in Liberty.
So I grew up with horses. My grandfather always had horses. My mom had horses. I moved to Texas in 2006, and I came out to Texas because I wanted to be in the horse industry. I had never really seen Liberty or even really heard of it probably until there was a competition I went to volunteer at in Oklahoma a few years back. And it wasn't a Liberty competition. They just had like a little performance type halftime show kind of a thing. And someone did a very brief Liberty demo. And so that was really the first time I'd ever seen it. And then I guess I really got started in it. The first clinic that Dan James with the International Liberty Horse Association and Double Dan Horsemanship, he came out to Texas and did a clinic at our facility in 2017.
Okay.
Some friends of mine that knew Dan had called me and were like, hey, we want to host this Liberty clinic. We need a place to do it at. Do you think you'd want to do it at your barn? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And that was really the first big exposure that I'd had to it. I had met Dan previously at another clinic in Missouri, and probably a year or two before that. And then we just kind of, once that first clinic happened, I was hooked. I was in.
It is addictive, isn't it? So what was your background? What was your background before that? You obviously work with horses and you've got a place there.
Yep. So before the Liberty, I grew up riding in the Western discipline. I used to show Western pleasure as a kid with the AQHA, the American Quarter Horse Association. And my grandfather always had a love of like cow horses, cutters, cow horses. That was his thing. And so when I came to Texas, I wanted to get into that side of the industry. So right now, the last couple of years, we've been able to ride some really nice horses, and we've been showing in the stock horse and the ranch horse versatility. And we've got a couple of prospects that we're working on, hopefully, fingers crossed, next year, showing in the rein cow horse. So, yeah. So doing a lot of the cow horse stuff. And I was actually really surprised how much the Liberty kind of fits in with just the body control that you have to have on your horse to make that successful.
So that's all a bit of a mystery to us in the UK. Tell us what cow horse is. Tell us what that means.
So it comes from the traditional ideas of like, so on a working ranch, you use horses a lot to go out, gather the cows, sort the cows, wean calves, so separate them from their moms, things like that, so they can go onto their own pastures and grow up. And so what we do is in the ranch horse versatility, you have 4 events that you do. One is reining. One is ranch trail, which is a very natural type trail. Like you go over logs, you drag a pole, open gates. And then you have ranch horse pleasure, which looks at the horse's movement, how smooth of a ride the horse is. Can he extend his gaits? Can he cover some ground? And then the cow horse portion of it, you go into the arena, you ask them to send your cow in, and you have a pattern of some divisions just box, where you just hold it on one end of the arena and your horse controls the cow and keeps it down there. The other division, you box, take it down the fence and box it on the other end. And then the highest level of the division, so a lot of the open riders, so a lot of the professionals show where they send out the cow, you box it, you take it down the fence and you turn it on the fence. At least one fence turn each direction. You pull it off and you circle it, or you have the option of roping it, just based on the cow and what the cow offers. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of an adrenaline rush. So yeah,
It sounds very cool. I think probably the closest I've ever come to it is riding polo ponies.
that would be an adrenaline rush too. Yeah, I've never ridden polo ponies, but I've watched polo before. I had a friend who her mom had a spot like in the polo club in Georgia, and yeah, that must be an adrenaline rush too. I bet.
I've never played polo, but I used to groom, so I used to enjoy riding the ponies.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your horses then. Obviously, I've seen Punk and the other two.
Yeah. So the three horses that I used in my freestyle were Punk, Cuban, and Stella. And I know it's hard to tell them all apart because the three of them look very much alike. Punk is the last horse that ran into me. He is the horse that I used for my my compulsory portion of my freestyle.
Okay.
And he is actually a 5-year-old quarter horse. And he was my first Liberty horse. I started him at Liberty at that very first clinic we did with Dan as a 2-year-old. And he's my main cow horse. Like, he's the one that I compete on the most. He's very talented on a cow, and he's just a lot of fun. And then Cuban is the first horse that ran out to me. He is a 4-year-old quarter horse. He's also a cow horse, but he's a little stronger in the reining, probably. He's just done more of the reining. So, and he's actually the full brother to Stella, who is the horse that I rode in the freestyle. And Stella is actually, she's a 5-year-old quarter horse, and she's actually owned by a client of ours, the Terry Ranch. They breed quarter horses in South Texas. And so Elliot and I, my husband, Elliot, I don't know if you guys have seen Elliot in some of the Liberty horse stuff, but Elliot has actually been showing Stella in the stock horse and the ranch horse versatility for the last 3 years. So she's pretty special to have her here and to be able to use her with our Liberty horses. So they're a lot of fun.
So if anybody hasn't seen the video, I've shared it on my page, but tell us about, this isn't on your list of questions, so I'm freestyling now. The long pole, what do they call it? The Garocca? Is that what they call it? Is that the right word? What's the name for the long pole that you started off your routine with doing the cycle race?
What was that question? I'm sorry.
You know, at the start of your routine when you were riding around the pole.
Yeah. So when I started out, the Garocha.
Garocha, that's how to say it, right? Okay.
Yes, the Garocha. Yep. So it's there's a lot to that, but it's a traditional. It's a Spanish style of, I guess, discipline of riding, and it dates back to the Spanish bullfighters. So there's a lot of cool history on that, and I got that part in the freestyle because it was something I was going to incorporate. Earlier this year, the International Liberty Horse Association was going to host a invitational freestyle at an event called Equine Affair here in Ohio, and it was supposed to happen in, I think, the first or second weekend of April. And I had gotten chosen to do that event. And so my theme for that was kind of incorporated into the Spanish style. And I was going to have 2 horses and incorporate a Garocha routine with it. But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, Equine Affair got canceled. So I kind of took that idea of that Spanish themed freestyle and kind of threw it in with this freestyle for this event. Because I'd already kind of practiced the routine. Not with Stella, but with my other horse, Cuban. He was going to be my ridden horse for that original freestyle. And so I just kind of threw it in there and put it together. Yeah.
Cool. Certainly some funky moves. Yeah. So how would you describe Liberty work then to anybody who doesn't really know what it is?
So it was hard for me to describe to people for a really long time. And I think I got a better handle on like a definition of it when the association became a thing last year. So to me, the way that I look at the Liberty horses, at least, is it's actually a lot of precise body control without you touching the horse and making it happen, right? So it's another discipline to me, just like the reining, the cow horse, the trail, the ranch pleasure. I know it dates back historically to like the circus horses and the movie industry. But I think now that we've created this discipline with the ILHA, the International Liberty Horse Association, it's a whole nother realm of body control and movements you can do with your horse, literally without making it happen. So I think it really sets up for a higher level of horsemanship. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of what I think of when I think of Liberty, is just this high level of horsemanship that you're asking this horse to do these maneuvers in such a precise way without having any direct contact or touch on them, you know, which adds a whole new challenge to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so why should people get involved then? I think you kind of half answered that, but can you add any more to that?
I honestly think getting involved with the Liberty work, it's a huge thing for our industry. So for the equine industry as a whole, it offers a place for people who may not be 100% confident riding their horse yet, or competing while riding their horse. It gives us a place to compete with our horses still and have that degree of difficulty, have that expectation of being able to do a pattern. Or maybe the horse can't be ridden anymore, or couldn't be ridden to begin with, and it gives you a place to do that. And I think it gives you a lot of confidence. Like, I know last year, after I competed at the 2019 championship show that happened in Kentucky at the Kentucky Horse Park, I think I had the Stock Horse of Texas World Show the following weekend. And I get a lot of show nerves when I go and compete on my horses. But for whatever reason, after competing at that Liberty Horse Show, where I was able to walk in that arena with my horse completely loose, I mean, he was like next to me at my shoulder, just like the patterns call for, but I didn't have a halter on him. I just had my whip to guide him around, and I did a pattern, and it just gave me so much confidence. I went into my next competition where it was a totally ridden competition, nothing to do with Liberty, and I just had fun, and I just did it. And
you're like,
was probably one of my best competitions I've ever done, honestly, because it just gave me so much confidence.
Everything else is easy.
I was like, if I can get this done, the rest of it's easy, because I can be riding him, telling him where to go. So it's a lot of fun, and it's something different. There's not a lot of people, I think, at this stage in the game that really have seen Liberty work. They might have kind of heard of it, but to see that precision that goes into it, and I guess to some people that don't know what it is, it probably looks like we're just out there dancing around with whips and horses, but I mean, if you really look at it, there's a lot of precision and a lot of body control going on. So to me, it was a huge confidence boost.
Brilliant.
So,
cool. So if somebody's interested, then how can they get started? I mean, you've obviously got like a long history in sort of training horses and stuff like that anyway.
Yeah. If you have a horse or you don't have a horse, one of the things that really drew me in was having a friend that let me work their Liberty horse. At that first clinic that we did, Dan actually had us all work one of his horses before we all got started. And that's really what got me hooked. Like, I saw kind of what Dan was doing, and I thought it looked cool. But then when I worked one of his horses, I was sold. Like, that just hooked me, like hook, line, and sinker. I jumped all in. I think the ILHA, especially with the clubs that we have now, it gives us a chance to network and to actually jump in. So if you're interested, I mean, I say go to something that a club is hosting. Whether it's a virtual deal like this, or if it's a face-to-face deal, and whether you bring a horse or not, or you just go watch, like I know we do Liberty practices and we have a lot of people just come and watch. Do that.
We're totally scuppered with COVID at the minute. It's so frustrating.
But even, like an event like this where, maybe sometime we could do some kind of a live deal like this where you have horses and we're working horses, and you just log on and just try to get involved with it. I think it's a lot easier to get involved now because of the ILHA. It creates this network and this community for Liberty horse, those who are interested in Liberty horse training and the discipline as a whole, and people who are already involved in it. Because there's people out there who've been doing this for a long time, way longer than I've even known it existed. But it just kind of brings us all together. So I think that this association is a good place to get started for sure.
Yeah, and the beauty for me is you can start on the head collar and lead rope, so it's really no barrier to entry as long as you can run.
It's like, yes, as long as you can keep up with your horse and your horse keeps up with you, you're golden. You can get that halter and lead rope out there. There's several classes for the halter and lead line. I mean, even at the show last year, a lot of us used those as like a warm-up class. We took our horses out there with the halter and leads and did the level 1 classes to get them warmed up. And I mean, it gives you a lot of confidence. So
one of my friends that's joined and she's entered, she's quite heavily pregnant at the minute. So she can do it. If she can do it, we can all do it.
Yeah, right. There you go.
That's it. Okay, cool. So tell us, how did you put together a freestyle? Because obviously my background's dressage. I've done dressage to music before, but you don't have props or costumes or anything like that. Like literally, where do you start? Plus there's only one horse. You had 3. Like
yeah.
Where do you start?
It does get easy. So I guess the more you have on your horse, as far as the cues and the maneuvers, or if you've added multiple horses, it does get easier because then you have all these different options, which I guess on the flip side makes it harder too, right? Because you have to decide what can I get done in what the 4 or 5 minutes that we had. And honestly, this is the first freestyle that I completely put together since probably 2013. We used to compete very regularly in the Extreme Mustang Makeovers.
Okay, cool.
And an aspect of that is a freestyle. Obviously, we didn't do it with Liberty because we didn't know what that was then. But I honestly try to stay away from the props because having a lot of props stresses me out. Because I feel like I have to go and use every single prop before my time is up. And I focus more on trying to get those props together than I do my horses and thinking about what I need to do in the routine. And it allows me, for me at least, how my brain works, not having a lot of props actually allowed me to just kind of go through and do what my horses were offering to do well that day. I had an idea of what I wanted to do and things that I was really confident that it would challenge us a little bit, but I knew that the horses were solid enough to get it done without it just being a total confidence killer for them and for me. And I just kind of went with it and rolled with it, tried to make it as entertaining as I could. And I think the hard thing with this is when you're filming it for a virtual competition, the lighting and trying to make sure that everything stayed within view was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a challenge that I never thought about until at the first time I practiced it. I thought, oh man, I need to make sure that I don't, ride off too far to the left, because then one of my horses gets pushed out of the screen. And lighting for us especially was huge because we have an outdoor arena. We don't have a covered arena that's finished yet. So yeah, I just kind of played around and just kind of had a good idea of what my horses knew and what they didn't know, and kind of went from there. There was a lot of other things I wanted to incorporate, but my horses weren't solid enough at it yet. So I didn't want to
in the freestyle
mess it up. Yeah.
Brilliant. So what about the music then? How did you play the music and record the whole thing, or did you put the music on over afterwards?
I had a rough draft of the music, and I got the music idea from a friend of mine, and I were talking about one day how, a lot of times you see freestyles, and I came in and the little, like a dress, with the garrocha pole, and it was all classic, and how interesting it would be to kind of cut the music and get kind of loud and rowdy. And, that's when the Liberty horses come running in. And I had that rough draft of the music kind of in going. I'd had it on my phone. And so we did play it while I did my freestyle. Okay. But it wasn't a strict, hard, absolute, this is where my time cuts. This is where. So that was an easy aspect, right, of the virtual show, is that I was able to go back, and when I didn't quite time up at the end, I think I ran over my music by 15 seconds at the end of my freestyle. So I was able to just go and add 15 seconds to it.
Oh, cool.
So that's the joy, right, of the virtual competition, is you can just lay that music on top of that video and know that you'll be able to hear the music too. Doing a live performance, you kind of have to hit your mark with your time a little bit better. And so that's probably something I need to work on.
Well, my next question, but given you told me how young your horses are, I think I'm going to be gobsmacked at this. How long does it take to get to that level?
So when I read that question when you first sent it to me, I kind of laughed because to think of, you know, my horses being at a high level was kind of interesting for me, because I always think of like, oh well, I think they're capable of so much more, right? So I don't really think of them as being like at a high level, but you know, I guess when you really think about it, they are doing things out there that, you know, not many other horses are doing at this stage in the game, at least. I guess Punk's been working, and not, you know, not like an everyday. I always work on my Liberty stuff. I'd love to. I just don't have time with, you know, training horses and running a business and all of that. Punk's been going around though at Liberty for 3 years off and on. Cuban, the 4-year-old, he's been going around at Liberty for a year. I've only had him for about a year and 3 months. And then Stella doesn't have any Liberty on her. She's just a ridden horse, but she sure stood still for me in that freestyle and it did well. But I mean, honestly, how the Liberty works, like since we've started understanding the basics and the foundation of the Liberty work, we've even changed how we start our colts and how we handle them, as far as getting our hands on them for the first couple times, getting them halter broke, things like of that nature. Just understanding how the horse should respond to you in a different manner, you know, yielding that shoulder around you for your circles and having a draw, that, you know, balance of the draw and the drive and the Liberty horse. It's changed at like a lot of what we do with horses that are never probably going to be Liberty horses, because that's just not their path. But it's changed how we handle them. So I honestly don't think it, I mean, if you just really focus on your foundation and your Liberty work, it doesn't take that long. It's amazing how fast the horses really catch on. Like my horses caught on way faster than I did, honestly. So I think that the fact that the Liberty horse, you know, situate, like, especially when you start working offline, you can't make anything happen. So like it's really hard for us to get in the horse's way. Like you hear that all the time with our riding, right? Like don't get in your horse's way, let your horse do his job. So that the Liberty work has been really good for me to not get in my horse's way, and I just let him do his job. So I think that it comes along quick if you really focus on those foundation, those core exercises that you learned in the first clinic or so that you do, or lesson or so.
I think you're right. I think it's me that's slow on the uptake, not the pony.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My horses caught on way quicker than I did, for sure. They were looking at me like, why can't you get it together?
Yeah, no, because I feel like I've been sort of trying to figure this out for quite a while, and then started with a new pony and kind of achieved the same thing in one weekend that I'd done in like 6 months with the other pony. Yeah,
that's exactly how it went for my guys. Like Punk took me a little bit of time, and I think part of the thing with Punk being he was my first Liberty horse, I was always scared I was going to break him.
Yeah,
like in the sense that I was going to untrain that Liberty work that Dan had helped me put on him. So I was really scared to go do it and like to practice it myself, right? And so I think that held me back a lot at first, until I guess it was a year later we were able to do a second clinic, and he just got me going around there and was like, you're not going to break your horse. Trust your horse knows his job. You just do your job. And that really helped me, just going out and just doing it. And it was really hard because I have a tendency to overthink things with my horses because I want it to be perfect, right? But yeah, just getting out there and doing it just makes you so much more comfortable and confident with your muscle memory of where to be as far as your cues and, you know, getting them to circle around you, drawing them into you, those changes of direction, things of that nature. So
I think the I do is I spend too long sort of on the lead line, and I think, oh, I just want this all to be perfect before I take it off. And then, like, you know, another 6 weeks has gone by, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, the best advice I've probably gotten is from, probably every single mentor I've ever had has told me, just let them go. Like, let them make the mistake, because if they don't make the mistake, they don't learn where to be, right? So if you just let them make that mistake, they learn where to be so much faster. I think the same goes for me. I have to let myself make the mistake so that I learn where to be.
Yeah.
And what to do. It's hard.
Brilliant. So that leads nicely into the next question. So who've been your biggest role models and mentors?
For sure with the Liberty work, I'd say Dan James and a friend of mine, Miranda Holiday. She's a local trainer here in Texas. She's one of the people that I met Dan through. She's helped me a lot with all of the Liberty work and horsemanship just in general. There's some other people that have helped me a lot with the performance horse side of things, as far as like reining maneuvers, the cow horse stuff, starting colts. Another friend of ours, who I actually was my teacher, Becky Terrell and Bill Caven. They're two people they were my professors when I was in college. I went through an equine program and they helped me tremendously. Van and Kathy Luce have helped me a lot, especially with the performance horse side of things. And back when we were first getting started, starting colts and things of that nature, Lanny and Kathy Leach, who are, they spend a lot of time in New Mexico. I think they've been up in Nebraska before. And Mark Lyon, he's helped me quite a bit too. He's another one that I met Dan through. So, and Dan's wife, Elizabeth, has been a huge just mentor of mine too. Just being in the industry as a professional horsewoman and, owning a business, operating a business, because I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with our business as well. And yeah, it's definitely takes a village to figure out how to do all these things.
That is true. And I was listening to a podcast today and it was saying who's on your bus, and basically, making sure that everybody that's on your bus is supportive and, giving you the right input. And if they're not, they can get off the bus.
It takes a team, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with people who have values and that align with yours and goals that align with yours too and what you want to do. Yeah.
So here's the big question then for all of us that are struggling along. So how do you deal with frustration? So when you feel like you're not progressing?
So the biggest thing that I do is, as far as when I get frustrated and I feel like I'm just stuck, I first of all try really hard to not take it personally. I know, like, especially with our own horses, sometimes when things aren't going right, we feel like it feels like a personal thing on us, right? Like we kind of take it personal because we put so much time and effort into these horses, but horses don't even have that in them to go after us in that manner of, oh, I'm just not going to do this to make you mad. They don't have that. So to remember to not take it personal. A lot of times it's just because I'm probably confused, my horse is probably confused, or I've done too much, or I haven't done enough, or we're both just lost. It's okay to just stop, rub on your horse, like scratch the hair off his neck, settle yourself, and then start, when you feel like you're just stuck and at this plateau, start looking for the little changes and go back to your foundation. And look at how far you've come. Like, I'll even go back and look at old videos, which is really hard, or old pictures of myself riding or working at Liberty or whatever it is, and look at, okay, so a year ago, this is where I was, look at where I am now.
Yeah.
Or a year ago, I couldn't even take my horse offline, and now I'm finally able to take him offline in the round pen or in a small pen, something of that nature. Like, just take a step back, look at where you were and look at where you are now, and go back and just notice those small changes and those little details. And then I think if you look at those small details and just those little moments of try that your horse offers you, I think it'll push you past that and get you to the next level. And it's always okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
Getting help is a huge thing.
I think that day to day, you don't notice the change, like you say, because we've been doing this challenge in the Liberty Club, this sort of lockdown challenge, and I've been videoing myself every day.
Yeah.
And I was saying to my husband, like, you just don't notice it on a daily basis. But like you say, if you look back a few months, you think, oh, I've actually come on quite a long way.
Yeah.
So to have that perspective, I think sometimes it's quite tough to make yourself do that.
It's hard to watch a video of yourself.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing it every day.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that helps me a lot. And then, I can breathe and realize that I have gotten something done in a couple months, and it helps push me to get more done, I think. So.
Okay, brilliant. And what advice would you give to somebody just starting out that we haven't already covered? Because we've covered quite a lot already.
Don't be afraid to just try things with your horse. Like I said, that probably held me back for a good year with Punk, my first Liberty horse. I mean, I was just scared to go out and just try putting different maneuvers together. And I was probably really scared to do it, honestly, until I knew I signed up for that Liberty Horse show last year. And I suddenly had to put do a pattern. So I had to put these maneuvers together. Don't be afraid to just go try things with your horse. That will push you past the beginner level so much faster than you realize, because it'll just get you comfortable with being out there working with your horse around you, asking him to do the different things and the different maneuvers. I think it just goes into that muscle memory for you, muscle memory for your horse, and it becomes just like walking. You just are out there doing your thing, and you don't even have to think about it so hard anymore.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid that you're going to mess anything up.
Yeah. So I think sometimes I get too like a bit of a geek, like reading books and watching like Dan's DVDs and things. And obviously everybody does things slightly differently. So
Yeah.
then I start to, like you say, overthink and think, oh, I should be doing it like this, or should be doing it like that, instead of experimenting, like you say, and just being in the moment. So
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have help, and you definitely need those people kind of coaching you, helping you, saying, oh, change this a little bit, try doing this instead. But there comes a time too where you just have to go out and just try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you never know; it might work really well, and you'll never know until you try, and then that gives you a lot of confidence that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
The worst bit is when it does work and you've no idea what you've just done.
Yeah. You're like, I don't know what I just did, but hopefully I can recreate it.
Oh dear. Right, another big question. So obviously, we're Believe Equestrian, and the name was suggested to me by a good friend of mine to remind me to believe in myself, which is something that I'm sure we all find difficult from time to time. So how do you believe in yourself and believe in your horses?
Oh, I think I've messed up a lot of things, competing and training, and it's for so many years now that I just, like, especially like I said, after that Liberty Horse competition last year, I just felt like if I could go out there and do that, then it does, I mean, I'm fine doing anything else. Like, not that I'm going to be very good at it, but I can at least go out there and give it a shot. And I think it goes back to, just like what we were talking about a second ago, just going out there and just doing things. I think if you just go out and try something with your horse and just put in that little bit of time as often as you can, just doing it, it gives you a lot of belief in your horse. It helps you know your horse.
Yeah.
And some days they're not going to be on their game, just like some days I'm not on my best game. But that horse has a lot of heart. That horse has a lot of try, and you'll come through it. And the more little successes that you have in those small aspects of, oh, my horse had great draw today, or, oh, today my horse, he finally got the lay down, or he made a step in the right direction to the lay down. It gives you that confidence to help you believe in yourself and in your horse. I think just doing it is just such a huge part of it. And all of us mess up. Like, I mean, I mess up all the time. That's how I've, kind of figured out where I need to be, sort of. But my horses are really good to me, and they sure help me out. So
dare to mess it up. Just do it and dare to mess it up. I'll remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds easy to talk about, but it is really hard to do. It's hard to just go out there, and even if you're just home alone out there, working in your own pasture, working in your own round pen or arena, it's hard to talk yourself into just going out there and trying it, because what if it doesn't go right? And if it doesn't go right, it doesn't go right, and you try again in a second.
Exactly. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So finally then, what are your goals for 2021?
I have a lot of goals. I have to think of like realistic goals for me for 2021. I have a lot of goals next year for obviously showing my horses in the cow horse and the reining. I've got a lot of aspirations as far as competing at least at an average level in those events. And then as far as the Liberty work goes, what I'd really like to focus on next year is we've got about, I think there's 7 horses here on our farm right now that have Liberty work. Whether they're owned by me and Elliot or they're owned by clients of ours, what I'd kind of like to do is start playing with putting together a larger Liberty team. So I've got my 2 horses that are paired up together, obviously Punk and Cuban. And I'd like to kind of play with starting to add, maybe 1 or 2 more horses to that and kind of seeing how that can kind of take off. And we'll see what we can get done there.
It's a mystery to me. How do they start playing and fighting? Like, how?
Oh, you should see the bloopers from those 2 horses. They are constantly playing, especially being a 4 and a 5-year-old, and they're a little young. And Punk is definitely a young-minded horse. He kind of goofs off quite a bit. That's how he got his name. So they definitely play around, and I think there's one spot where you can see they kind of nip off, like they nip at each other and kind of play. And there's been times where they just they leave me and they run off and they play and they come back. And the important thing is that I can always get them back, because every Liberty horse is going to leave. I mean, it's just the thing that happens. That's the beauty of being at Liberty, right? They're totally free to do as they please. But they usually come back to me and work their fun out. So yeah. But that's a big goal I have, is to try to add a couple more horses to the team and kind of see what I can get done with that, and hopefully put together at least one more performance for next year, hopefully for the championship show, and do okay at that. So,
well, I hope they keep a virtual element to it so that we can also compete in the UK.
Yes, yeah.
That would be nice.
I think there's going to be some exciting things coming for 2021 with the International Liberty Horse Association, and I think it's definitely, because it is international, right? That's our whole name. I think they are going to try to incorporate clubs all across the globe next year, just like we did this year.
Yeah,
so, which I think is awesome.
We're after some team events as well, so we can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, it's been lovely chatting to you, and thank you so much for making it for us. And it's nice to meet you in person, kind of.
Yes, it's nice. Hopefully, I'll get to see you actually face to face one day, and we can
maybe I'll get a one day. That would be exciting. Or you can come and see us.
That would be awesome.
Brilliant. All right. Well, you take care, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
See you later. Bye.